Hi, welcome to 90% Knitting. This is episode 238, and I'm Lisa, your host, also known as Fibernymph on Ravelry and Instagram. Today is Wednesday, April 12th. Yes, the 12th. This week is flying by for me, and I'm losing track of my days. Seems to happen a lot. But anyway, hi, how are you? Thank you for coming to spend some time with me, and hopefully you will enjoy this hour, whatever it ends up being. I have my coffee. Do you have a beverage? This is a mug my son got me, I believe, for Christmas. Morning without coffee is like sleep. I've showed it to you before, but it's still applicable. So how are you doing? Have you had a good week? I hope you have. I have had a good week. Hi, it's Lisa from the future here. I was in the middle of processing the video, and the weird sound issue that I had a few episodes back popped up again. And so I'm just popping in here to refilm or re-record that little bit that I need to cut out, and I'm really crossing my fingers and hoping that this is not going to show up multiple times through the video. But I was in the middle of telling you that my hand and arm issue that I had been having last week whenever I talked to you about the numbness and tingliness and everything has subsided. It seems to have resolved itself, and so I'm back in the saddle again as far as knitting. Still taking it a little bit easy, but overall I seem to be faring just fine, so I'm happy to report that. Okay, I'm going to send you back to the podcast, back to the better lighting, because obviously I've undone my lighting here, and we'll get back on track hopefully. I'm just going to say a general hello to everybody this week because I did check the welcome thread. I don't think there's anyone on there who has introduced themselves who I have not specifically said hello to. So I will just say hello and welcome. I'm glad you're here. If you have not introduced yourself in the 90% Knitting group in the welcome thread, you are welcome to do so. I love to see the introductions. Certainly not a requirement. You're welcome to hang out here all anonymous if you want to as well. And also, just so you know, I always try to put up show notes in the episode thread in the Ravelry group. Sometimes those end up being very chatty threads, other times not so much. I know I am not always wonderful at being able to reply to posts in there. I try. It just depends on how busy the week is. So if you would like to continue or enter into a conversation based on anything that I mentioned in the podcast, that's the place to go do it, in the episode thread. Because I would love to be able to chat with you. It never ceases to strike me that this is a very one-way form of communication. I get to communicate all of the stuff to you, but I don't often get to hear communication back. Likewise, I know sometimes people leave comments on YouTube, and I've said this before, I am not always able to reply to those comments. It sort of depends on whether I'm on my computer or on my phone. Everything is much more difficult if I'm only on my phone, and unfortunately, due to how busy I am during the week working, I'm often only on my phone and not so much on my desktop during the week, or at least not for extended periods of time. Just know that if you're sending me comments, whether it be through Ravelry or through YouTube, I do read them and I appreciate them, and I try my hardest to be able to reply back to you whenever I can, but I'm not ignoring you on purpose, honest. I promise. Okay, let's get on to the knitting. I actually have a finished object to show you. And this is my antler hat, or my sort of an antler hat, because it's not from the actual antler beanie or antler toque Tin Can Knits pattern. It was just sort of an adaptation. But I had showed it to you last week. I'd started it, and oh, okay, here we are. I think I showed this to you last week. Anyway, so yeah, it worked out really well. I did do the one antler motif, and then around the rest of the hat, I just have alternating sections of stockinette and reverse stockinette. So I ended up with 6 wedges, essentially. Like if you look at it this way, you can see the 6 wedges. I'm not 100% sure I did the decreases for the antler motif correctly, only because I was following the antler, the chart from the actual antler hat pattern, but the decrease instructions, because they were written for doing that motif the whole way around the hat, my brain was just having trouble grasping what I was supposed to be doing, since I wasn't starting from the exact same place that the instructions were starting. So I sort of winged it, and it worked out fine. I think it looks fine. I mean, to me, it looks fine anyway. But yeah, that was a little bit dicey. Otherwise, I did the decreases as they were in the antler motif, and then I did decreases along the edge of each of these other sections. So when I was on the stockinette sections, the right-hand part of the stockinette section, I would do, you know, a left-leaning decrease on the right hand of it, or on the left hand of it, I'd do a right-leaning decrease. And I think that's it. I don't know that I did decreases. Oh no, that's not true. Okay, I just sort of misrepresented that. For the sections abutting the antler motif, I did decreases here and here on those stockinette sections. But as you go around, I did paired decreases, like a purl two together, and then either a knit two together or slip slip knit, depending on where it was. I always did just purl two together, as I didn't try to modify that because that's not nearly as obvious, and I didn't care. But I knew you would be able to see the directional decreases in the stockinette section. So that's how I did that. And it worked fine. It's a cute hat. I mean, I'm going to try it on. It's going to mess my hair up, but I'll show you. Wait. I want the antler to go off to the side. There we go. So this is how I would wear it, with the antler motif off to the side, because I think if I had it growing right out of my the center of my head, I'd look like a unicorn, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, it's very snug, very tight fitting. But again, it's out of leftover Cascade 220 in the Aspen colorways. It was leftover from my antler cardigan, and it's warm, it's comfortable, and it's a snug fit, because remember, I've been having issues with knitting my hats a little bit too loose. But this one is perfect. I believe I used 5s. I did the ribbing in 5s, and then the rest of the hat in a 7, US 7 needle. So anyway, worked out great. I'm happy with it. It gives me another hat to wear, and it used up some of my leftover yarn that was just sort of sitting around. And that's always a good thing. So now we have messy hair, but that's okay. I did it for you. And just in case you're wondering, I am wrapped up in a shawl. You've seen this before. This is just a scrappy garter stitch elongated triangular shawl. You can read the details. It wasn't a pattern. It's just my standard elongated triangular shawl recipe that I use. But these were yarns I had left over from that really, really ridiculously long and narrow Afghans that I made a few years back. But I love the shawl. It's my big squishy shawl that I just wrap up in, usually if I'm sitting and knitting in the morning or whatever. But I was chilly today, and it happened to be on the back of my chair, so that's why it's there. That's why I'm wearing it. Okay, let's see what else. Okay, so that's my only finished object. I did work on the Mountain House socks. You know, these kind of took an inadvertent hiatus only because I kind of misplaced them for a while. This is the hazard of going back and forth between two houses. I bring things to one and then forget that they're there. And these actually I had left here at my house and sort of forgot that they were here. And I don't have a lot of knitting time while I'm here at my house just on a daily basis. Now, if we spend the night here and then I'm, here in the morning, then I'll have knitting time, but that's not the usual case. So anyway, these I had to find, and then I finally found them because I knew I just had a toe to finish on the second one. So this was the second sock. I finally finished the toe this morning. So I have both tubes done at this point. The stitch minder really doesn't mean anything at this point, or the place keeper or whatever. That thing that's dangling it doesn't mean anything. It was just there from one time when I showed it to you. Anyway, the socks are quite matchy-matchy, which is nice because my hubby likes matchy-matchy socks. So I just need to put in heels, which I'm going to do. Afterthought heels. I think I'm just going to go ahead and use the yarn that I've still got left from the socks because I've got plenty. And so I'll just use that for the heels, and I'll have some left over that I can put in my, you know, my Granny Stripes blanket at some point, and there will just be some leftovers. So anyway, that is my Mountain House winter colorway. Just my standard sock. Actually, it's not a vanilla sock. It is a 3x1 rib. That's what I did for the cuff is a 3x1 rib, and then the top of the sock, the sole is obviously just stockinette. So, and I carried that ribbing down onto the toe. I kind of like to do that. It makes it. Sometimes I always think it looks weird if you've done a ribbing the whole way down the sock and then suddenly the toe you stop and just do stockinette. So I like to carry my ribbing down onto the toes usually. So anyway, and I'm going to say this because I know I need to reply to an email someone sent me asking me about this, either an email or a RAV message. Someone recently asked me if I was planning on doing other seasonal Mountain House colors, and I am planning to do one for every season. This was Mountain House winter. I'll be doing a Mountain House spring soon. I just need to wait for enough things to bloom and change color that I can get some good inspiration pictures to do that. But that will be forthcoming, so yay. Alrighty, so that is what I worked on that has been in progress that you've seen before. Everything else that I worked on, all new cast-ons. It's been a cast-on week. You know, I've been in this weird sock mode where, you know, I've mentioned this. I'm like, I'm just not in the mood to knit socks right now. I wanted to kind of knit shorty socks, and that was sort of a short-lived, no pun intended, a short-lived desire on my part because I've lost it. It's like, where did it go? I don't know. Because I started one pair of shorty socks and then I'm not really enjoying them, and I'm not super enjoying the yarn that I decided to use for them. I'm not sure. They may get ripped out. At any rate, I did decide to cast on a new pair of socks only because I did have a pair of US1 needles sitting around that weren't being used, and I wanted to knit up a pair of socks in my anniversary colorway that I introduced in last week's shop update. So this is my 6th anniversary Fiber Nymph Dye Works 6th anniversary colorway in the self-striping version. It's called Never Not Color because I'm pretty much never not about color in my life and in my business. So this is how it's striping up. I just wanted to see it stripe because it's so much fun. So it's a 6-stripe repeat comprised of 4 colors. So you've got, you know, the narrow green and then the turquoise blue, narrow green, and then a narrow taupe, like a sandy taupe, and then the magenta and the narrow taupe again. So I'm really enjoying it. It's just, you know, I love self-striping socks. That's from the very beginning of my business, I knew that's what I wanted to specialize in, and I still enjoy creating the striping patterns and the colorways. It's what brings me joy, and I hope that, you know, at some point in time, people don't decide that they don't want to knit stripy socks anymore because that'll make me sad. But anyway, yeah, so I cast these on. I mean, I don't have a huge driving desire to get them done super fast, to tell you the truth, but I wanted to see them. I wanted to see the colorway knit up, so that's why I cast it on. I am toying with the idea of maybe playing with a different type of heel in this sock because I'm such a standard heel person. You know, I either do my traditional heel flap heel, or I do an afterthought heel. Those are my 2 go-to heels that I love. They both fit me really well. But I know there are just so many other socks or heel patterns out there. So I might play and try something different on this one. I don't know. We'll see. But that's on the bounce base, and again, I wanted to see how it was going to stripe up. So now I know. So that was cast on. Two other things I cast on are things that I've mentioned to you that I was going to cast on, and I finally did this week, and they're both sweaters. The one I just cast on this morning, actually, and that is out of the, okay, let me find the correct bag here. I'm using a winter bag mainly because it's a big bag, and some Bags by Awesome Granny bag. Claire from New Hampshire Knits is currently hosting the Rusty Cow, which is a sweater pattern. It's translated Rusty, but if you look for it on Ravelry, it actually comes up in the, I guess it's a Norwegian word maybe, that means rusty. It's by Steinen Berna Gogens daughter. Is the designer's name. Anyway, this is a pattern that was written to be knit up with the Plotulopi, which is that unspun singles yarn. So it's just like a really thin, like a, what's the word? Pencil roving. A really fine pencil roving is kind of what it's like, but it's unspun, so it's sort of delicate, but once it's knit up, I showed you, I don't have it handy, but I showed you my swatch from it, and once it's knit up, it's very sturdy. You know, it's not going to fall apart on you. But this was the sweater that I had originally seen made out of this, and I liked it, and it's a colorwork sweater, and it's a steeked sweater, which I really wanted to try doing because I've never done one before. I was put off a little bit just because the sizing isn't quite, like the largest size for it, I think is a little bit, going to be a little small on me. But then I thought about it more and more, and I kind of wanted to take part in the knit along that Claire is hosting. And so I thought, you know what? Screw it, basically is what I said. I'm just going to knit the largest size, and I think I'll be able to tweak the sizing by the size of needles I use. And also, I didn't measure gauge because my swatch I never did soak, but I think it'll be okay. I can also make my button bands a little wider if I need a little bit of extra space, but it's a cardigan. It can be worn open. I don't know. And honestly, in the back of my mind, I'm just thinking, it's just knitting. Isn't that what Lisa Saratoga Knitting from the Knitting by the Sea podcast, she's always saying, it's only knitting. It's just knitting. You know, it's no big deal. And honestly, my desire to make this sweater, yes, I would love to have a pretty colorwork sweater made out of this really interesting yarn, but my driving desire to make this sweater is, number one, to do a colorwork sweater in the round that will need to be steeked because I have not steeked before and I want that experience. But also, I just wanted the experience of knitting with this yarn because it is so unusual and it's just such a different type of yarn. So, you know, regardless of the finished product and if I get to wear it or not, I will have the experience of the process. And that's interesting because I've reached a point in my knitting right now where I am finding that I am more about process in certain projects than I am about the finished project. I don't know that that's necessarily going to always be the case. I mean, there's certain things like when I'm knitting hats, like those palette cleanser hats, like those, I'm totally about the product because I know I can sit down and bang a hat out in a day or two if I need to or want to. But that's not really the case with this sweater. This sweater I cast on just because, again, I wanted the experience of knitting it. So, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit froggy. If you if you watched the little video that I did for the sorry, I have to get my stitches here, they're falling off. If you watched the little video I did introducing the Barber Pole Fiber Club earlier this, well, no, I guess it was last week. I was suffering allergies majorly that day, and mostly my allergies are fine. I can't remember, maybe my allergies were bothering me last week too. I don't remember. Boy, I'm all tangled up here. They're mostly better, but I'm feeling a little froggy right this moment, so I don't know. But at least my eyes aren't as scratchy as they were. I've been able to wear my contacts the past couple of days. Okay, I'm sorry, this is all tangled up and twisted. I mean, it's not actually twisted, like I did not twist my stitches, but the yarn is twisted up in the knitting at the moment, so we're not going to worry about that. But this is all the further I've gotten. My gosh, that was all over the place here. I just have ribbing. I've started on the ribbing at the bottom, so there's really not a lot to see. There's almost 200 stitches on the needles at the moment, so it takes a little while to get around, and I'm trying to be very careful as I knit this because it is a fragile yarn. It'll pull apart very easily, as I demonstrated to you last week when I first showed you the yarn. I'm not having a problem with it pulling apart. I will say doing my cast on was a little tricky because my hands are a little bit rough. Like I've got a little bit of a hangnail right here. So doing my long-tailed cast on, every time I did a stitch, the yarn was sort of catching on the skin on the side of my finger, but that's really the only issue I had. It didn't cause any breakage. Otherwise, it's fine. But I am doing the ribbing, and the ribbing is very interesting in that it's not just knit purl every single row. Actually, this is a free pattern, by the way, so I don't feel like I'm giving too much away here, but you start out each round with 2 purl stitches, which is what my stitch markers are denoting here. Those are my 2 purl stitches, because that is where you're eventually going to run your steek will be in those stitches. Anyway, but you do one round where you knit 1, purl 1, and then the next round you just knit. So it's sort of a modified ribbing, but I like it, and it goes a little faster than having to knit purl every single row. The pattern is written in centimeters, obviously, since it's a Norwegian pattern. So I'm really not sure. I have to figure out 5 to 7 centimeters for the ribbing. So how much is that in inches? Let me look. 5 to 7. So that's approximately 2 to 2 3/4 inches of ribbing. I'll probably do about 2 1/2. And then you move up the needle size. Although it does not specify to do that in here, you kind of need to know what you're doing with this sweater. I would not say that this is a good beginner sweater pattern. You move up and then you just knit in the round. There's no waist shaping. I'm sure you could add some if you really wanted to. I'm not going to bother because I already think it's going to be a little bit snug. So you're just knitting this tube basically up until you get to the armpit level. Then you stop and you knit sleeves. And once you get the sleeves done, then you go back to the body and you incorporate the sleeves to go around, and then you start doing the color work on top. I don't have a picture of the actual sweater here, but you can find it on my project page. You can find the link to the pattern page. It's just a really pretty floral motif that goes across the top. It almost kind of looks like a thistle motif. So yeah, we'll see. But this is the color. It's called Cayenne is the color of the yarn. It's kind of blowing out there. This is a little truer back here. This pretty rusty orange. It's got some red sections in it, red fibers. And then, I don't have it here, but actually, is it sitting? It's actually sitting in that bin, that beigey color on top. That's what I'm going to use for my color work. So it's coming along. I'm enjoying the process. Again, I'm not in a hurry. I had said this before, you know, when I felt like I wanted to cast on all the sweaters, and I still do feel that way, but I'm not in a hurry to finish it. Number one, because I want to enjoy this process of knitting it, and number two, we're getting into warm weather. I'm not going to be wearing Icelandic sweaters, Icelandic wool sweaters anytime soon. So as long as I'm knitting on them and making progress, hopefully by fall I'll have a nice little collection of sweaters. Which brings me to the second sweater that I cast on this week, and it's the one that I'm doing out of Lättlopi. Now, which is another type of Lopi. Okay, here I need to... This is also a single, but it's a spun single. So the Plateau Lopi is an unspun single. This is a spun single. And this is what it looks like. So this is the body of my sweater, which is a dark heathered gray. And on this one as well, I'm only on the ribbing, but I was having trouble figuring out what pattern I wanted to do, because every one that I found, for whatever reason that I was drawn to, were color work sweaters, but they were done flat. And I really wanted a color work sweater that I could knit in the round and then steek, because I wanted the experience of steeking. And so I'm going to be doing that obviously with the other one. And so I finally decided, the heck with it, I'm just going to choose one that I like, and I'll knit it flat. Color work knit flat is a little different. I've done that before. It's not my favorite way to knit color work, but I'm going to try it anyway. And anyway, the one that I decided to do is the Hero cardigan, which has been around for a while. Yeah, the copyright date is not actually even on the pattern, but it's by Julia Farwell Clay. I know it was making the rounds for quite a while. It's a very pretty sweater, and I love the colors that she did in hers. But that's what I decided to do. So mine will be gray. I've got all those different colors of Let Lopey. There's some up in that basket. There's a couple more that I ordered. I haven't decided which ones I'm going to use for all of the color work yet. So it'll be a surprise when we do figure that out, when I figure that out. But anyway, I'm starting this sweater out using the size for the 48. And then I'm going to decrease up to the 45 for the top. But I'm modifying the sweater too, in that I started out doing the ribbing, which at this point I'm past the ribbing and I'm just doing the straight knitting right now. But I did the ribbing in a 7, US 7, because that's what the pattern, I believe the pattern called for. Let's see. Oh, no. Oh, how did I do that? I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how I ended up doing it, but the pattern is written for both a pullover or a cardigan. I'm doing the cardigan, and I used US 7s. I'm not sure why. I probably should have used 6s. Maybe I couldn't find 6s because I can never find US 6s when I'm looking for them. But I think it's fine. I did the ribbing in the US 7. I'm fine with that. And I'm now knitting the body also in the 7, which is not what I would usually do. I'd usually go up a size, but I think that's going to be, it's going to make the fiber or the fabric too loose if I do that. So, whoops, I'm losing stitches. The nice thing about when you lose stitches out of any of this Lopey is they just stay there because they're toothy and they just hang there all by themselves. So yeah, I'm fine with this. I had the brief thought that what I could do is knit in the 7 and purl back in a 6, which is sort of what I did for my antler cardigan. To get the fabric I wanted, I really should have probably used a 6 for the body, but I didn't have a 6 with me because I was on vacation at the time. So I knit in the 7 and I purled back in a 5, and it gave me a really nice fabric. I'm not going to do that, I don't think, unless as I knit along, I find that this is really turning out to be too open. But right now it looks okay. So I'm going to stick with this. So I'm doing the larger size of the sweater for the body part, so for up to my armpits part, in the 7. And then once I get there, I'm going to do the decreases that I need to do in order to do the next size down for the yoke. But I'm going to move up to US 8s because that's also going to be the color work section. So I'm hoping that all of that finagling will yield a sweater that fits me okay. That's my plan. Because I always need to go down. I've found this, and it worked great for my antler cardigan. That fits me really well, having done 2 different sizes, because I'm smaller across the top than I am, I mean, the shoulder-wise. I've got the girls, but otherwise, I'm definitely bulkier below, and I like to have that extra ease. So that's where we're at with this sweater. I feel like I just babbled a lot and it was probably confusing, but it feels like the right idea to me. So we'll see how it goes. This is not going to be a stunningly exciting sweater to look at for a while, being in this heathered gray, but I'm really enjoying the process of knitting with this yarn, because the Icelandic wool is it's a toothy, rustic yarn, both of them, both kinds. It's not my usual yarn that I knit with. I tend towards softer yarns generally. I would say the Cascade 220 is probably one of the less soft yarns that I tend to knit with. And even that, it's not a horribly toothy yarn. It's not a superwash yarn, so it's not as soft. Noro tends to be, it can be a little on the toothy side as well. But, I don't mind that. I honestly don't mind that scratch factor, that toothy factor. It's just not my norm. So I am enjoying the process of knitting with these different yarns that I don't really knit with. And it's funny. I'm finding as I'm working on this, well, especially the Hero, because I had cast the Hero on actually prior, a few days ago. So I've been working on it a little bit longer than I've been working on the Rusty, which I just cast on today. But I'm finding that it's slowing me down. Not because it's difficult knitting, obviously. It's just, knitting and purling. But because the yarn is a single yarn, it's prone to splitting, so I need to slow down so I know that I'm not splitting my stitches. And also, I'm not feeling the urgency that I usually feel when I decide to knit a sweater, because I usually decide to knit my sweaters in the fall and the winter, and that's when I also want to be wearing the sweater. So it's like, I need to get this sweater done so I can wear it this season. And I have removed that sense of urgency from the process for myself by choosing to knit these sweaters now as we're going into summer, so that I have all these months ahead of me that I can work on these sweaters, theoretically. We'll see how that goes, because come mid-July, I probably will not want to sit with Icelandic wool in my lap. We'll see. I mean, if I'm in air conditioning, I can handle it, but, we'll see where it goes. I still have a couple of other sweaters I would really like to cast on. I don't know if I will, because it's starting to feel a little crazy pants, and it also sort of depends on my needle supply, because they're all ones that would tend to use the same size needles, and I only have so many. And I'm trying not to buy more needles just for the sake of buying more needles, although I did buy one more set of needles this week, mainly because they're a set that it's a type I haven't used before and I wanted to try it, but I don't have them yet, so I'll tell you more about that once they get here. Anyway, yeah, so that's my that's my knitting this week. I did do some work on the Granny Stripes blanket. I added a few more rows. Again, I will show you that at a later date, because I feel like it's not interesting to look at every week at this point. It's it's growing, but not visibly. I'll show it to you in a few weeks. I did do spinning this week, though. I finished spinning the first half of the Tempted Merino on my Traveler up at the Mountain House. Love these colors. Aren't they beautiful? This merino spun up so nice. Can you see how fine that spun? I mean, okay, there we go. That, for me, that's fine. Oh, excuse me. Need to take a drink. I mean, it's fine. It's poofed up though, because it's merino, so it's a squishy fiber. So I'm not sure what it'll end up being once it's plied. I'm gonna guess probably a heavy fingering weight, but I really think it's gonna give me some decent yardage. And this is the fiber that was a prize for the knit along back in February, so this isn't gonna be my yarn. But yeah, so I got the first half finished. I'm working on the second half. It's taking a while again because it's spinning up very fine, but it's underway. In between finishing that half and starting the second half, though, I did refill up one of my turquoise blue BFL bobbins, because I've got all these bobbins that are partially full, because every time I ply, one bobbin runs out and two still have fiber on them. So I'm just re-adding more fiber. So I've got one full bobbin. I actually realized, because I've got those two different bumps of the BFL from Briar Rose that I've had forever, the one bump is almost done. It was the second one, so I guess I've spun more of that than I have the first one, because they were both about the same size. So that was kind of exciting to see that there's sort of light at the end of that tunnel with that blue fiber. So we'll see how much yardage I get out of that. I would love to get enough yardage to do a sweater out of that BFL. I'm not sure that I will have enough, but we'll see. I'm enjoying it now. Now that it's like moving along and I can actually see progress, I'm enjoying spinning it a little bit more, because at the beginning it just felt like it was going to be such a slog because there was so much of it. Okay, so that is all of that. So next up, I have the drawing for the Bamboo Jungle Socks pattern that I showed you last week. This was generously gifted to me by Lisa Griffiths, who is the designer. She is Army Gal 97 on Ravelry, and she designed this sock pattern. It spans a number of sizes, from children all the way up through adults, and so she offered one as a giveaway to one of our viewers. So I had a thread up and I closed it just before I started recording and did the drawing. There were 15 posts. The first one was mine, so we have 14 entries, and Random Number Generator chose number 2, which is kind of crazy because, you know, when you do 2 through 15, you expect it to fall somewhere in the middle, but we got the first person who had posted in the thread. And number 2 was Layla F. That is your Ravelry name, and you are Layla from, I'm not sure where you're from, Norway. There's a Norway flag. I had to figure that out. So Layla from Norway, congratulations. You are the winner of the Bamboo Jungle Socks pattern. When you hear this, please PM me and I will connect you with the designer who will gift you that pattern. So yay. And I always have a prompt for whenever you're doing drawings, and it said, what is your favorite textured knit stitch, either to knit or just your favorite for how it looks, because this is a very textured sock pattern, so I thought that was an applicable question. And Layla's answer was that I love the way eyelet stitches look when it's knitted in a pattern with knit and purl stitches. So that's very cool. I do too. I love eyelets. They're fun. So again, congratulations, Layla. And again, thank you so much, Lisa, for donating that pattern. Really appreciate that. Alrighty, let's talk about the knit along real briefly here. We are again in the spring quarter now. So April, May, June, growth, life, and light are our themes. And the April focus is sport weight yarn. Our April challenge is the shorty and sporty socks, which I've noticed that nobody has posted any yet. Now, I realize they're socks and it's a whole pair, even though they're shorty socks, so it takes a little while. But I am I'll be interested to see how many entries we get this month. I know this challenge was really kind of a bigger challenge, but I thought it was doable, so we'll see. Hopefully we'll get somebody. Hey, if you're the only entry, that pretty much sums up or shores up your prize winning chances. No, but anyway, you've still got the whole rest of the month. It's only the 12th, so you've got over 2 weeks left to get some shorty socks up there for the challenge. I am still waiting to hear from our winter quarter winner, who actually was also Lisa, who is Army Gal 97. So Lisa, if you hear this, please PM me so that I can get your prize mailed to you for being our winter quarter winner for the knit along. And all of the, by the way, all the guidelines and everything for the April challenge are in the April challenge thread up on the board. So if you have any questions, PM me. I'll be happy to answer them. Another thing I was going to mention about on the boards is the 2017 goals thread, which was started, let's see, when did I start that? Back at the beginning of January, which makes sense. It didn't get a lot of activity straight off, but it's been interesting because in March there were a couple posts in it in March, and then just one in April. And so I just wanted to let you know that thread is still there. And if you want to post in it now, you are more than welcome to. If you had goals that you just hadn't shared and you wanted to share them, that's fine. If you did post them and want to check in with them and update them, that's great too. Related to that though, I was going to ask, you know, I find, at least for me, I tend to reevaluate goals pretty much all the time. Like, that's sort of an ongoing thing for me. It never used to be. I used to kind of do it on a quarterly basis, but I feel like especially with my business, I'm always reevaluating my goals and seeing where things are going and everything. I just wanted to throw the question out there, and we can have that discussion in the goals thread or in the episode thread, however you want to do it. How do you plan or organize your goals throughout the year? I mean, I'm not talking about like, January 1st, making your list of goals for the year, but like, how do you keep your goals organized, and how do you keep yourself on task with your goals throughout the year, like on a week to week basis even? Because that's where I'm at, and I've recently found some tools that are helping me, especially again business wise. I found and I don't remember if I talked about this in the last podcast or not, a program called Red Booth, which is mostly meant for businesses and everything, businesses with more than one person, unlike myself. But I've been using it, and it has been wonderful for keeping track of business stuff and planning out future stuff for my business, that I need to be doing, and helping me keep track of it. It's got the Gantt chart format, which is a nice way it's like a timeline kind of format. And then it's got like, a daily view, just list-wise. And I've found it tremendously helpful for me. I'm not a paper planner kind of person anymore. I used to be. I used to love using a paper planner. If I was still in that place, I would be all over bullet journals, I'm sure. But that's not where I'm at anymore. Primarily because I'm not in one spot all the time anymore, and I need something that I can take with me. And like Red Booth is, it's an online platform, so everything that's there, I can log on to it here at home. I can log on to it from my phone with the app. I can log on to it up at the Mountain House on my laptop. It's always with me, and it's always synced. And that is what I need right now. So that works really, really well. I also use my calendar on my phone, but that's more for personal stuff like appointments and things like that. But that's something that I've started using, and I put reminders in there for myself for the craziest things, like remember to bring mason jars home from the Mountain House. Like doesn't sound super important, but it's like if I don't put that reminder in there, I will forget. So those are ways that I've been staying on top of stuff that have been working for me. So I would just be interested to see like how your organization, what you use to plan and to organize for yourself. I mean, whether you're a business person or at work or, not, even if you're just how you plan even your knitting goals or plan your life in general. I don't know. I'm just always interested in finding out what works for people, because I think hearing new ideas can be really helpful. So yeah, again, feel free to share that in the 2017 goals thread or in this episode thread, any place. That would be great. I'd just love to have that conversation with you guys. I think that's everything I have for knitting this week. I'm checking another way I keep things on track is I have little Post-it notes. They're like this size. And if there are things I need to keep right in my line of sight, I put them on the edges of my monitor. I've got a nice big monitor. But I don't see anything there that I have not talked about yet. So I think we're good. Let's move on to 10%. I am so happy to say that the building site for this building that we're having delivered, which is coming on Friday, is finished. We finished it last weekend. Oh my goodness. I am so, so relieved to be done with the shoveling and the digging and everything that we have been doing with dirt and gravel and tree roots and everything. It's done. It looks great. My husband did a wonderful job of planning it and executing it and not executing me as I frustrated him through the process. No, we did a really good job of working together on that, and it looks good. So I can't wait to get the building. I'll be up there on Friday. I'm going to work from the Mountain House Friday so I can be there when they deliver it, because I'm telling you what, I know how it works. When I had my shed here delivered a couple years ago, I know, but mine's a small shed. It's like 12 by 16. We're getting a 12 by 28 shed. It's basically going to be a garage delivered. They bring it on a truck, and it's amazing how they can like place it so exactly the way this truck moves. It's fascinating. So I'm really interested to see how they manage to get this one in there, especially the way they're going to have to maneuver to get it in there. But that's coming Friday. So that is sort of like the preliminary step for Operation Studio. Getting this building in there so that all of the stuff that is in the porch area, I know I explained this multiple times, and I'm sorry if you're tired of hearing it. For me, it's helpful to know that the process is moving along. Anyway, so, all the stuff that's stored on the front porch is going to get moved into that building once we get it. So then we can start taking that, and that's what's going to be transformed into a room that will become my studio. There's a whole bunch of steps that are going to have to take part before we can actually start construction there, but it's moving ahead, so that's very, very exciting. Okay, the other things in 10% are all about what I've been listening to. I told you probably a few weeks ago that I had started listening to the book Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman, which is basically his retelling of traditional Norse mythology stories. It was wonderful. I finished it. I loved it. He's a wonderful storyteller. I mean, I've never read any of his other books, like his original works. But listening to him read these myths was wonderful. His reading voice is fabulous, and he did all of the characters, how he changed his inflection depending on who he was reading. It was great. I just loved it so much. I highly recommend that if you like Norse mythology or you like Neil Gaiman, give it a listen. The end story was about Ragnaroth, which is, the ending of the gods, like when the gods and the giants have their final battle. And the last few stories really kept getting darker and more depressing. And Ragnaroth was one of that story. It was just like, oh my gosh, it was so hard to listen to in certain ways. But then at the very end, there was this one line where Loki, who, he's the major troublemaker god, who was fighting against the gods. Essentially, he was gloating. He's like, it's none of this matters, because he's talking. Who was he talking to? Heimdall. I kind of have notes written about it because I was so struck by it. He's talking to Heimdall, who's one of the gods, and he's just gloating. He's like, the world's burning, everything's over, humans are done, or the mortals are dead, Midgard's destroyed, I've won. And Heimdall's just telling him, you haven't won. I can see further than you. I can see what's going to happen. And he starts telling him this story about rebirth, of how things are going to come back. And he has this one line in there. It is not the end. There is no end. It's simply the end of the old times, Loki, and the beginning of the new times. Rebirth always follows death. You have failed. And I just love that for many, many reasons. I mean, it's the Easter season right now, and so I thought that had a really strong correlation there. There is no end. There's always going to be rebirth. And just also from, some of a lot of the stuff that's just in current events right now, it looks so dark and so depressing, and so like, how can we keep moving forward like this? It's just getting worse and worse. And just having that reminder that, there won't be an end. There's going to be rebirth. Something good can come out of this. And that's what I like to focus on, that death and destruction and the powers that work for that kind of stuff fail. They don't win. They don't win in the end. That is my belief. And I like to remember that. And this book was just really good for that. That end story was fabulous. So anyway, that got a little bit heavy and deep. It was funny, after I finished listening to that, I was trying to decide what I wanted to listen to next, because I actually had an Audible credit waiting for me. But I couldn't decide on a book at that point. And so I started watching TED Talks on YouTube, which I do every once in a while if I'm just sort of in the mood for something inspirational or motivational, which I have been lately. And so one of the ones that I have been meaning to listen to and hadn't was the one by Brene Brown. I don't know if you've heard of her or not. She is a researcher, a social science researcher, and I first heard of her when I was reading Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson. She refers to her in some of her work and everything. And her work is sort of, it sounds sort of depressing in and of itself because she talks a lot about shame and vulnerability and everything. And it's like, oh, those are happy topics. But it's fascinating. And so I looked up one of her TED Talks that she's done a couple of them now. And I was watching those, and then that, like, you know, YouTube in general, you watch one thing and then it just keeps suggesting more and more things. So I was watching a whole bunch of those types of topical YouTube videos the other day, but then I did get on Audible and I downloaded, it's not actually a book, it's a series of talks or lectures that she gave, and I'm not sure where she was, at what, like, it was a conference of some sort, but it was called The Power of Vulnerability, Teachings of Authenticity, Connection, and Courage by Brene Brown. And it really does sum up a lot of her, you know, her research and her studies, and it's fascinating to me. And I don't know if it's fascinating to me because I do have a background in counseling and psychology. That's what I went to school for. It's what I have my master's degree in and everything. So from that aspect, I do find it really fascinating and I like listening to it. But I think it's beyond that too. I think just as a, you know, these are topics that each one of us deal with, and just hearing her descriptions and what her research has found has been food for thought for me, just with personal stuff. So I'm really enjoying that, listening to that series of lectures by her. So okay, that's everything for 10%. That was sort of a heavy 10% section there. I just got a little bit of shop news for you. There is not a shop update this week. There will be one next Friday, which I'll talk about in a minute. But I did want to let you know that the anniversary colorway pre-orders are still up. They will be up through tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the last day to pre-order them. So again, remember, I've got the self-striping, I've got a variegated and speckled version of it, and I've got it on fiber. And you can see all of those in the listings on the shop page, which is fibernymphdyworks.bigcartel.com. So those pre-orders are still up, and the other thing that is up is the Barber Pole Fiber Club has opened. Sign-ups opened on Monday for that, and those will remain open through the 19th. Again, there's no limit on how many people can sign up during that time. It's just that there's a limited time. So we're doing really well. I've had a nice response to it. I think we've got 14 or 15 members in the club already that have signed up, so yay. Thank you so much for that. I'm really excited about this fiber club. I've not done a fiber club in a couple of years at least, so I am looking forward to doing fiber with you guys. There's a lot of different options. Again, I did a brief intro video for the club last, I want to say Friday, maybe Friday or Saturday. I guess maybe it was Saturday, explaining all about it. But there is also a thread up in the Fiber Nymph Dyeworks group on Ravelry that has all of the details about the club, about all the options, the pricing, the fiber amounts, the different types of fiber available. So you can check that out there. Again, that's in the Fiber Nymph Dyeworks group on Ravelry. And then there is a link at both the top and the bottom of that page to the sign-up questionnaire. So how it's working is click on that. It'll take you to a Google form. Fill out the Google form and submit it. Once you submit it, you will receive from me a confirmation email just confirming your choices that you chose for your membership, and directing you to my shop where there will be a reserved listing for you to go ahead and pay for your membership in whichever payment method that you chose to do, either per shipment or the full club up front, which gets you a 10% discount. So that seems to be working really well for everybody. I'm giving you like a week's time to get your payment in, so it's not like you have to pay the same day that you send your membership questionnaire in. There's some latitude there. But yeah, check it out if you're interested. I'd love to have you be a part of the club. Okay, and as I said, next week there will be an update on Friday the 21st at 6 p.m. Eastern. Um, I'm not 100% sure of everything that's going to be in that update, but I know because I've already dyed it, I can't show it to you yet though, are my two new Star Wars colorways that I've been talking about that I've wanted to do lately. Those will be in the update next week. So please tune in and watch that. I'm so excited about these colorways. I can't wait. I haven't rescanned them yet. I can't wait to see them. They are self-striping colorways. So I'm excited. They are not the ones that I said I wanted to do based on Rogue One, though. I have not had a chance to rewatch Rogue One yet, so I can't do those colorways until after I get to see that movie again. These are two different colorways that I've just wanted to do forever. I've had them in mind for a long time, and I'm finally having the chance to do them. I will also have additional skeins of Awakening, which was the colorway that I developed from The Force Awakens, that movie. That's what it was inspired by. So those will be in there too. So there will be a couple of different Star Warsy things in there. And hopefully I'll have some other goodies. I'm just not 100% sure on what those are going to be yet. So I will be doing an episode next week, though, next Wednesday, and I will be doing the preview for the update at that time. So you'll get to see all those goodies then. And lastly, I just wanted to remind you that I am going to be vending at the end of this month on the 29th. In Delmont, which is very close to where I live, Delmont, Pennsylvania. The Delmont Fire Hall, there will be a fiber show called the Rags Fiber Affair and Wool Market. It's my first time vending there. I'm really excited to be a part of it. I think it's sort of a smaller show. I mean, it's not like, a huge convention kind of thing, but there's a lovely collection of vendors going to be there. I will include the link to that, the page for that fiber affair in the show notes, so please check it out. And if you're anywhere around again, I'm about 15 miles east of Pittsburgh. Delmont, I would say, is maybe about 25 miles east of Pittsburgh, along Route 22, well, Route 22 and 66. If you're familiar with the area, it's the fire hall is actually up on Route 66. But yeah, it's very easily accessible, so it's a great place to check it out. But I would love to see you. If you're going to be in the area and want to stop by the show, please come by and say hi. I'll look forward to seeing you. All right, that is everything I have for you this week. Have a lovely rest of your week. I hope you're enjoying some warm weather. We finally are. We're also getting some rain, but that's okay. As long as we've got those warm temperatures, I'm happy. So anyway, again, show notes I'll put up in the Ravelry thread, 90% Knitting, in the episode thread on Ravelry. Feel free to comment, have conversations. I would love to talk to you about anything I talked about this week. If you have questions or comments, post them there. And I will see you next week. Take care.